So for the most part, Odyssey is getting some pretty good reviews. But some people out there feel these people that are giving these high scores out aren't really being all that forthcoming when it comes to the microtransactions in this game. Because after all, they're not just selling skins, they're selling experience boosters, materials/resources, essentially consumables. And so what I'm going to attempt to do in this video is to see if there's any need for concern, if people are just overreacting, or if Ubisoft is being dirty, grimy sons of bitches.
I should probably not climb on this.
One concern that I see being voiced quite a bit is that this game is overly grindy. Grindier than ever. Too much fucking grind. If you're not doing all the side activities, you might reach a point where you're going to get your ass kicked by the enemies. In other words, you're going to see a spike in difficulty due to being underleveled. Now, here's the thing. Games have been doing this forever. They're trying to discourage the player from trying to power through, therefore, go get leveled up and come back later, sort of thing. But there are a couple of potential problems. First of all, trying to be as neutral as possible here, placing all your bias or perhaps hatred aside for Ubisoft or their games. I think it's fair to say, I think we can all agree, I think it's common sense. Since they are in fact selling experience boosters, I think there is a potential there for some sort of exploitation when it comes to game design, making a game maybe a little bit harder than usual in order to entice people to buy those experience boosters. Because let's be honest, if we were able to play this game and just be on cruise control, who the fuck would buy that shit? You would only buy that stuff if A, you didn't have the time, or just quite frankly didn't want to put the effort in when it comes to doing side quests, when it comes to the grind, or B, you're tired of dying over and over again. It's actually starting to come into play when it comes to your overall experience and enjoyment. The option to fix that is available, and you can afford to pay for that option. So I think it's completely reasonable, understandable, and logical to ponder if they are tipping the scales a little bit, if there is some funny business going on behind the scenes to try to entice people to spend more money. After all, this is a business, right? They're in it to make money, and as much money as possible. That's no secret. So I don't think there is some sort of conspiracy at play or some sort of hater parade here. I think it's a perfectly natural, honest, genuine question. And I'll get more into this in just a second. One thing I will say, though, for people going out there saying, hey, the grind is grindier than ever, it's worse than ever, that might be true. But instead of going out there telling people to trust you, I think perhaps you would be better served if you actually went out there, spent some time, and proved it. And in this particular case, that would be extremely easy to do. You can directly compare this game with Origins and every single other fucking Assassin's Creed ever made. You're now armed with conclusive evidence. Okay, you got the data, you got the fucking hardcore facts. But I guess that takes too much effort. I mean, God forbid, these people make so much money on YouTube, but they can't be fucking bothered. I mean, seriously, it's harder to dispute claims when you're armed with facts. When you're armed with data to support your claims. But in any event, I personally feel that yes, this game seems to be a bit harder than Origins. I'm playing this game on normal. I played Origins on hard. With that considered, it feels I'm taking more damage in general. That could be just my imagination, but here's the most simplest of examples. Level 1 dude against level 2 wolf. I do have some armor equipped, and I'm getting killed in 1 or 2 fucking hits. So while I can't say definitively, from my experience, it does seem the game is a bit harder, and yes, it does require more attention and more involvement from you as a player, whether that means gathering resources or doing some of the same tedious quests over and over again like most RPGs ever made. But here's the thing. Up until recently, Assassin's Creed wasn't like every other RPG. So it's understandable that longtime players of Assassin's Creed games won't find this kind of experience familiar. This is certainly different, to say the least. But more importantly, This is an open world game. An open world game that Ubisoft once upon a time were able to claim that you could play it your way. If you didn't want to do the side stuff, you didn't have to. You did not have to commit to doing the optional content. And although that still might be the case with Odyssey, that argument becomes harder to make. But I'm just going to say a lot of this, of course, is subjective. Earlier in this video, I gave 2 examples of who these microtransactions are aimed at. There is a third option, and oddly enough, it is the longtime Assassin's Creed loyalist. People who have played the majority of Assassin's Creed games and, well, they want to play it like it used to be, looking for the core narrative experience uninterrupted. And I can certainly understand that, because I know when I play many of these open world games, once I start doing side stuff, I get distracted. God of War is a great example. I think the overall narrative experience wasn't as strong as it could have been if I would have just started from point A to point B. The story would have felt more compelling and had more impact if I would have just done it in one swoop, if that makes any sense. Here's the good news. The AI is still dumb as shit, so any of these encounters where you feel like these enemies might be a little too strong for you or whatever, most of you are going to be able to figure out a way to exploit how fucking dumb the AI is. For people saying shit like, look at these lazy, entitled gamers, they don't even want to play the content, they don't want to put in the work, let me level with you, dude. It's not that. It's that the content is so fucking lackluster. Most of the side stuff is mind-numbingly dull shit. And just because other open world games have also been known to have the same tedious, busy work, well, it doesn't excuse it. Here's another thing. It's not the idea that I want these side quests to be as interesting and compelling as the main story quest. It's the idea that I don't like to have these MMORPG elements in my single-player games. MMORPGs are like that because they are getting hundreds, sometimes thousands of hours out of their players. The reason why it's accepted in MMORPGs is because there are thousands of quests. It's also worth mentioning that these MMORPGs usually offer a much higher level cap, a much more involved skill system, a much more dynamic experience overall, a lot more moving parts. And so when you're talking about a more laser-focused single-player experience, a game with a definitive beginning and an end, I would expect to see a lot less of that, especially when it's being introduced right away. Sure, some of this is subjective. Some of it, I don't feel it is. But when it comes to Assassin's Creed, it's clear it's no longer the game it used to be. And so while I sit here and try to compare what it was to what it is now, I think there's really no reason or no benefits to doing so, other than to point out the clear differences when it comes to game design. I myself miss the days of being an assassin. The good news is, it's still a solid game. There's still a lot of good content, meaningful, wholesome content that I think most people will enjoy. I'll say this one last time. Microtransactions are only going to become more directly embedded into the game design. I remember back in the day when you'd be able to actually earn or go to an NPC to acquire a treasure map. Now they actually want fucking cash. Amazing. I was playing Forza Horizon 4 the other day. Yep, treasure maps for sale. And you got these clowns saying things like, well, those are for people that don't want to earn it. No, those used to be for everybody. Those used to be an option, a choice. We would be able to actually earn a treasure map in-game. It was an item that in most games you were able to buy with in-game currency or perhaps come across one along your travels. And now they decided to slap a dollar amount on it and put it behind a paywall. If you don't find that to be a certain level of fucking greed that just makes you nauseous when you think about it, I don't know what is.